approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, approval of the agenda by Jim, supported by Jeff. All those vote for the agenda, yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Nay? All right, new business. Approval of the minutes for September 19th. Do we need time to review those, or are we prepared for motion?
I've got one correction. On the top of page 2, the rough estimate in the second line, the rough estimate is listed at 9,000. I believe that was 18,000.
Okay,
Okay.
And I would make a motion to approve the agenda with the one correction.
all right.
Second?
And to vote for approval of minutes, yes?
Yes?
Noes. All right, moving on. Collaborative development of Sands Park. I had the opportunity to speak with the city manager, and, we're looking at Sands Park. It is not a traditional park in the city per se, because there's a covenant that is structured through the Sands family, that we are joint responsibility, the district and the city on this. And so I met Bill kind of asking, because I know that your Park and Recreations Committee for the city have met and made some plans. So really interested in collaborating, having an understanding of the scope of the work that the Parks Committee is planning for all the parks, and what possibilities that they feel exist for Sands, and maybe some of the possibilities that are related to the school desires for the park, and how we might be able to collaborate together and see how we can mesh our needs together in that space. Is there anything I missed on that?
So
Go ahead.
the biggest item of discussion that's occurred outside of this control board is really the tennis courts. And obviously what their current condition is, if they are removed, is there a temporary use that could be placed there or a long-term use? So I think the city council has put that request to the city manager. I put it out to the Parks Commission. We have at least 4 members of the Parks Commission here tonight. They've got some ideas, but there hasn't been any formal proposal. As we discussed in our September meeting, we did reach out to a local contractor to find out what it would take just to demolish what was there. And I'm guessing that's around 20,000 at the moment. We have put a budget line item in the city budget proposal to do that demolition.
And is that taking them all out, or?
It takes all 4 of the courts out and the fencing. However, all the conversations that have been had, I think there's a lot of interest, a lot of concern. I personally, when we were constructing the shed, the storage shed that's new, we got to witness the kids coming after school in groups. We got to see them playing on the courts, even though they're in poor condition. And I know there's ladies here from the teen center that probably could tell you how frequently that happens. So I don't think anybody wants to lose those facilities, but I think they're at a point where they're very unsafe to keep. There's been some suggestions thrown around about the possibility of replacing those courts in their location. And then obviously there's over a $200,000 price tag for that. So how would we fund that? And I believe the mayor was interested in something short-term so that the space could be used while we're trying to finance the long-term improvement. Some ideas that were thrown out were, help remind me, like sand volleyball. Do you remember some of the other items?
Yeah, in the scope of parks in the city, is it viable or part of the plan to have tennis courts there?
I think the location historically has been very popular and people came to use it. I think there used to be built-in seating in the side of the hill along Robinson. I don't think that's safe and really isn't viable. The parking lot that's interior to the park makes it very accessible. So I think it's possible to replace them in the current location. It'd sure be nice to have 8 courts in one location, honestly.
Yeah, so that's what, if this is an investment, I just want to, I'm sure you do too, want to be sure that this is the spot and this is the purpose.
Right.
And, you know, it's a spot for 4 viable courts. And, of course, the school would benefit from that too. And I think it makes it reasonable for us to host, maybe in 2 locations, but we could do some hosting. And I'm not opposed to it, but I want to make sure that, like I said, that's in the scope of thought for planning, commission, and the rest of your parks. So I don't want, you know, I don't want to duplicate or you know, suggest something that is supposed to, that could benefit the community in a different location.
Right.
But I'm an open slate.
Well, we've got 3 sets of tennis courts in the city itself. There are 2 courts down at Fifth Avenue Beach, and most tennis players' opinions are that that's not an appropriate location due to the wind and the sand, and it's very tough to be able to play there. The 4 courts at First Street Beach, especially since those have been renovated, the use has gone up tremendously, and I know the school's using them. The MRA does classes, so that's been a very good investment for the community. There's probably space to put 4 more courts in that general area, but we haven't really looked at that in detail, and that hasn't been discussed. The one thing that makes it difficult down there is, again, the wind. And you know, we were contacted 2 weeks ago by the school saying tennis is opening up, we'd really like to get the girls outside. The problem we have there is the sand accumulates in the snow. We have to let the snow melt, then we have to let it dry, then we have to get the sand off. So Mickey McCann was able to get 2 of those courts open today, and that's hung.
Thank you.
And he was down there working on the other 2, but it's a little heavier maintenance down there. So I'm not sure.
Well, and that's not a
Not sure if
question
we
that
have
needs to-
spaces.
Yeah, it's not, I'm not looking for any solutions or directions from the
Right.
meeting. I'm just maybe suggestions how we might work together to make some determination. There's grant opportunities within the community and outside the community. It's possible, we do have some bond funds allocated for some improvements for the kids at Sands Park. Maybe if we're looking at the whole park, some of those funds could be used as a matching or in-kind funds if we think strategically. So I thought we'd just kind of start the conversation about collectively creating a vision for Sands Park and see what the possibilities might be and work in concert with your overall vision for park.
Yeah, I think our responsibility should be number 1. We should make a decision whether or not to remove what's there.
I think we've made that decision.
Number 2, I think there's demand and desire in the community to replace at least 4 courts someplace. So then the next job would be where, and specifically if it's going to be there or not. And if it's not going to be there, then I think we should work with the Parks Commission and the teen center to find out what an appropriate use would be for that property.
And we're just talking about tennis courts at this time, but you know, using this entity, kind of talk about the overall use of that park. And again, it's to complement what else is in the community, but knowing that there's 634 kids that are going to be outside there maybe 2-3 times a day, and how we can make a reduction.
Yeah. So obviously we have the softball field, and we've put some investment and maintenance into that in the last couple of years. representatives of the, I think it's the middle school softball league
Yep.
group, has been in contact with me recently, and they're asking if the skate park can be removed so they can start prepping the field, and so we're waiting for it to thaw out, and then we're gonna try to get that removed as soon as we can. So it's great to see the ball fields partly maintain themselves when they're being used. If you've got an active group, they're dragging the infields, they keep it level, it keeps the weeds down. It's tremendous. When, as an example, when that field wasn't being used, you could tell, right? So I think it's great that the softball field gets used. As far as the winter time, we use it for the ice skating rink. We get between 7 days and 20 days a year to actually skate on it.
We've had years of 6 weeks of ice skating.
Okay.
It has happened.
But it's usually short, and it's Mother Nature driven. So there's members on the Parks Commission that are actually looking into ways that we can supplement that by maybe refrigerating it, or doing something to build ice even before we get
Kinda like
extended
chiller.
periods. Chillers, yep. That's expensive, but it's something we're researching. How do we make that better, and how do we get more usage out of it? The skate park, can you guys speak to how often or how frequent the skate park gets used there?
Daily.
Daily? Okay. So it seems like that's actually holding up well, the equipment that was purchased. I mean, it could use some paint and some tender loving touching up, but it seems like it's still in good condition. I'm glad to hear it gets used daily. There's a couple small pieces of playground equipment behind the skate park and behind the tennis court. We just talked today about some things to improve that, maybe putting some wood chips underneath, and there's a swing missing. But that's the current use of the park,
Yeah.
right?
So I guess I'm inviting the opportunity for us to work together and have a conversation about an overall vision for the park that serves multiple purposes.
Now, the skate park, where the kids, they've taken some of that lighter equipment over to the tennis courts, and they continue to skate over there on the one side with pieces from the skate park that they were able to drag over there.
Okay.
I can't get them back, I don't know how.
We can do that.
Go get that stuff and bring it back, but, tomorrow it's back over there again, so. I haven't dealt much with that, but I know it's an issue for your guys to have it all in one place.
Okay, we can address that.
Thank you.
So we're going forward with pulling that out.
That would be my vote.
If you've got it in your budget, and obviously we know the covenant steers us to share those costs, I would move forward with the understanding that we understand our responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that getting that out sooner than later would be good. But I hope that the absence of it spurs us to continue to talk and plan and make some decisions.
Yeah, I've been part of these conversations back when I was the city's engineering rep, so for probably 14 years, we've been trying to find a way to fund the replacement or rehab of those courts. And there may be access through some a DNR grant, although the city's got an active application to upgrade the North River Walk, so we'd have to wait some time for that. And then the community foundation, we did apply for the foundation funds, and they steered us to First Street and actually funded First Street.
Yep.
But that could be something we look at again.
Do you feel the absence of what is there would be detrimental to the park, or does it seem it's time to get that out of there?
Well, I think from a safety perspective, it's time to get it out.
I agree, just wanted
And I do think it's gonna leave a void with the kids that come to that park daily,
It is.
especially after school. We already know that the tennis players in the community avoid the park out of necessity, not out of desire. So I know that there's more facilities that are needed in the community.
Yeah, reflecting on my conversations with our tennis portion of the community, they seem to feel that is the desirable location.
Okay.
For the courts. So I guess the next is to get some bids, and you'll handle that and send us the appropriate invoice.
Yeah, and I will tell you that I haven't thought about this, haven't discussed it with anybody, but I would even further that. If city council is willing to budget the funds and the school is willing to participate in that, I just did some quick math, and the sidewalk, the length of the frontage along those courts from 7th Street to 8th Street on Robinson is about 430 feet. So 5 foot wide makes that 2,150 feet. And at $6 a square foot, that's $13,000. Now there would need to be some grading and some filling, but I think if we took the tennis courts out, use some of the spoils to build up and be able to extend that sidewalk and partner together on that whole package, maybe we could literally kill two birds with one stone.
Bring it, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Just grind the courts and use that as a base.
I don't think you need to do that, but if you drive by there, the majority of the slope from the edge of the curb and gutter down the hill, it's a pretty steep drop. So you need some fill in there to be able to make probably an 8 foot flat space behind the curb to get the sidewalk on there. And then if you did that today, that fill would encroach onto the court. Once the court's removed, that's not an issue. And I will tell you that I've worked with the school's engineers and architects, and we have closely looked at the traffic patterns around the new Kennedy School, right? And the expansion of that and the changes in the parking. We've worked hard to forecast traffic patterns, pedestrian patterns, and I think there's a gap that is necessary to get people to get kids off the street from 7th to 8th Street.
So this will be a scheduling. You'd have to schedule this work as we were progressing our bond work. Okay. Do you see a problem with that?
I don't,
Okay.
no. There's even a possibility, because the city has committed to upgrading 6th Street from Robinson to 8th Street as well. And we've timed that construction, I believe, for next spring, so that it gets done in conjunction with the site work that the school is doing and in time for the school to open in the fall of '24. Or, yeah.
I'm glad we approved the site work with a local contractor too. That's very helpful. Yeah. I think we've checked off B, A, and B. Any discussion on old business related to tennis courts or sidewalk? I think it was pretty clear on the collaboration on Sands Park. Count on Bill to help navigate that and see how we can meet together and have an agenda and strategize an outcome that's for purpose.
I think we were looking a lot at the Parks Master Plan and some of the things, and if we're going to look at grant opportunities, talk about physical fitness stations, and you said that kind of met your goals of a PE.
And I don't know, on the outskirts of it, if there was a walking track or something that went along with the fitness station. So just trying to brainstorm, of course, collectively we'll create a vision.
Probably 6-7 years ago, I don't remember the entity, but we did apply for a grant through some health-wise organizations in northern Michigan. We were not successful, but we proposed it down at First Street Beach. That could be something we look at too, or I could look back into. And I know that the health department has come to quite a few of the Parks Commission meetings and looking for ways to increase activity and health of the community and especially the youth. And, you know, we've hung some signs at Sands Park in that effort. So they may be aware of some resources as well.
Maybe you can facilitate us working together. If the Parks Commission
Yeah.
would be
I-
able to help facilitate anything like that, that'd be great.
Yeah, do you think it may be a joint commission meeting with the control board and the Parks Commission and really, I don't know, the next agenda that you have, maybe it could be added, or we can schedule it, but.
I think we're at a leverage point for some things.
See, and I think, I mean, it's gonna take, when you do a big project like a $250,000 tennis court, it's gonna take some time to find funding, to budget funding for match, and then to build it, obviously. So to me, that's a two-year horizon at the minimum. So putting something like a couple volleyball courts, it's very inexpensive.
Well, you're saying volleyball, that gets used and kids can use it.
Sure.
And it's pretty easy to dump some sand there and put,
And I'm thinking neighborhood kids, and I'm thinking kids that get out of school, and
right,
you know, that's something that'd be easy. It's a couple posts and a net, right?
yep.
We just put in tetherball down at each of the beaches. It's a pole, a rope, and a ball. But the kids, but I'm just saying, it's really simple. And maybe there's just some simple things that we could do there that provides activity while we're waiting for the grander project.
So, and just something it looks like, looking at our Parks Master Plan, we did receive, 1980, we received a grant from the DNR to do the tennis court, so we did get funded before, it looks like, and so, and I think we talked about maybe looking at a Minger grant for something, but that would be October of next year, and then fingers crossed that we'll have the North River Walk grant, and then we could maybe apply for a DNR grant the next year for Sands Park.
Mr. Pratt?
Okay.
Any other discussion?
What we've discussed so far is the two agenda items. We have essentially voted to demolish the two tennis courts, but to continue to work on finding a location and funding for four courts, either at that location or some other location in the future. And then working between the school and the city to fund that demolition and also add a sidewalk along that stretch from 7th Street to 8th Street.
Perfect. Sounds good.
And we talked future collaborating with the Parks Commission on the overall vision of parks in the city and how Sands Park improvements may be collaboratively accomplished.
Sounds good.
Any public comment? Yes.
Hi, I'm Linda Chick from the Teen Center.
Yeah.
And just a thought, I know if the tennis courts go, could it possibly, like in 2-year planning, turn into a community build of some kind? That's how we got the skate park. That's how they got Lake House Landing down there. They got everything in place and then people came and helped out. Is that a possibility?
I think at this point in our planning, anything's a possibility, yes.
It's a thought. You know, Manistee is a small town at its best. You put the word out, you got people coming from all over the place to help you.
We actually, the last playground we built was the new Rocket Playground or Rotary Park down on First Street. That's how that was built. And then the Parks Commission and Public Works are jointly working together on new playground structures at Morton Park and at Duffy Park. And that's the plan as well as to do community builds for those.
And that would be kind of good. Is Martin putting any money into their park over there?
We have some discussions with them on improvements coming up.
Oh, that's good.
We're working on it.
That's good.
The plant and the local people have been tremendously gracious to work with over the years, but the plant was purchased about 1.5 years ago by a new corporate ownership. So they're just still trying to work out how that new owner
Our community.
supports, yeah.
And I know tennis courts are a way bigger deal than, like maybe Lighthouse Landing, because that's a lot of experience and put it in, I'll just put it in.
Yeah, from a tennis court, it's a little, that would be a little bit hard on the community build, because essentially you're paving 2 parking lots, right? And then you're fencing around it, and then putting poles in and the nets, and then there's a specialty company that comes and puts a surface on it and basically paints it.
True, I bet you Elmer's would come and help out. I have an in over there, so let me know.
Okay?
Any other public comment?
Jeff, I've already talked to you, but maybe collaboration on that missing swing at Sands Park. We've got 3 of those little belt swings over there, and then there's an empty spot that had a swing at some point. We need to get a little top swing over there that's missing there. Jessup, he might have a lead on one, but if not, maybe that'd be something the city would chip in with the school on. And then the second thing is there are some wood chips at Jefferson in a mound there. Maybe they're already allocated for another use, but the 2 pieces of equipment that are at Sands Park right now are that swing set and a slide, and they've never had anything under them. And just as a safety, but it also looks like we are trying to improve the park. They give it a, so I don't know if you would have a use for those chips at Jefferson, but we could use chips under the slide and the swing over there at Sands Park. And the third request would be, I heard about the meeting when I was looking on the website for Parks meeting. Would it ever, I don't know what your bylaws state, but it would be nice as far as collaboration, if we could, if there was room to always have a rep from the Parks Commission on the Sands Board and maybe even a rep from the Teen Center. We've got an amazing Parks Commission right now. Anybody would be an asset. And it'd give us some, like what the questions you're asking now, what's the long-term goals and things like that. It would be a good fit. So I don't know if your bylaws allow for a rep on this board from us, and probably a rep from the Teen Center would be nice.
I can speak to that a little bit. The structure of the board was created when the Sands family donated the land. And we've got some of that history when Mr. Feder did his presentation. But that's what dictates why the board exists, what its makeup is. But personally, I certainly welcome the collaboration and any public input. And I can give you guys a heads up whenever we do schedule a meeting.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking if we could even have someone sitting on the board, because I think some of that Sands Park stuff went away in 1954, so. I don't, you can think about it, you don't have to address it.
Would there be a way, I kind of agree with what Ms. Lasky's saying. I understand there's bylaws, but would there be a way to have representation but not voting members on that? If we looked into the bylaws,
Like
So
an
there
ex-officio
aren't-
member.
just to like give input, even if we can't have them as voting members, but just to have them here to give some input or some ideas.
I think it's definitely valuable to have them here to give input. But as Jeff said, there is, it's part of the deed where there's control board was set up. And I don't know what you're talking about, some sort of sunset on it. I'm not aware of that, but
I can see
we
us
can-
scheduling at least quarterly or an annual meeting, we don't meet that often, that we schedule a joint meeting. That may be a solution where it's a study session rather than a voting meeting, and then we can have a roundtable kind of discussion and get feedback.
Yeah.
so it would accomplish the purpose.
And that's kind of what I'm suggesting for us to do next, is have that type of meeting, so you can tell us what your plans are, and that we can still work in the covenant of the Sands bylaw.
Yeah, I think that's helpful, because whatever they're discussing, I'm bringing to you, and whatever you're discussing, I'm bringing to them anyway.
Well, that's the purpose of meeting today, is to
Right.
get this together.
But we'll look at the bylaws and see. I think they're pretty restrictive, but I could be wrong, so we can have George look at those.
But I think if that's the case, the work sessions, like Mr. Stoneman said, would be valuable. I think it just helps with the collaboration and keeping
Yeah.
communication open.
That's the goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other public comments? Motion to adjourn? You done, Chris? Okay,
So moved?
all right.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor of adjournment, yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Oh.